Welcome to JDM Imported.
Hey, welcome back. Episode 3 of the JDM Imported podcast. I'm Dante Prinzo, owner-operator of Elusive Auto Company, and we're getting into some different topics here. We're going to hit an update on this episode, update of some of the vehicles that I have incoming, some of the ones I'm working on, some of the ones that are giving me issues. Everything's giving me issues. Why my microphone smells like fiberglass right now. It does. I have, the furry, whatever you call it, the sock cover, the windproof guy, so it doesn't sound like when I'm breathing heavy and panting. But anyways, this thing collected a ton of dust in the garage because I'm trying to get some clips for a YouTube episode in the garage, grinding fiberglass. I could fall down this rabbit hole for a half hour alone. But so some updates on the cars and just some food for thought. A topic I wanted to hit on. When I was thinking about this topic when I was at a recent Cars and Coffee, and that's looking at car guys and girls. And kind of how people identify themselves. And I think you have those car generalists, and then you have the experts. So the generalists that know a good amount about a lot, and the experts that know precisely a ton about a very finite grouping of cars or chassis, whatever it may be. So I want to talk about that a little bit, and my experience spending a good 3 hours with an NSX locally, driving around in it, touching it, feeling it, looking at it, talking about it, learning about it. It's really the closest I've been, other than shows and whatnot, to an NSX, a USDM NSX. So that was a fun experience. I like that. And I have some thoughts, some good thoughts and some surprisingly meh thoughts on that car. So let's kick it off with the, my food for thought here. So, I'm at Cars and Coffee. Actually, it was 3, there was Cars and Coffee meet. There was another local meet. And it's, North Carolina here. It is just a great time of year. Really, it's always a great time of year. We have a very small off season. And coming from Pittsburgh originally, coming from the area of winter beaters and winter projects, this is just awesome. I've been here for 7 years and I'm still getting used to this long season. I love it. So I'm going around the circuit here and just meeting some different people in all walks of car culture background. I mean, we're talking the oldies, rat rods, JDM cars, Euros, a lot of Euros around here. And of course, what I hold near and dear to my heart, the JDM types, even if they are USDM, Japanese vehicles. So, what I've found? I mean, I have an appreciation for a extremely wide range of cars. And when I say appreciation, not just like I won't hate on it. I mean, I really appreciate the craftsmanship, the different power plants. It doesn't have to be the best handling, the fastest, the most futuristic, the coolest interior materials, whatever it may be. I like some cars with just garbage fit and finish, but I just like the style of them. I like some cars just because of how they're built, and because of that, and because of the builds and the things that I've done to cars. I think I'm the type. I fit into more of a generalist category. And I've met up with a lot like me where we can really speak on almost anything. I can know enough just to get me in trouble with most manufacturers. I mean, I'm not an expert on Porsches, and some people can rattle off, every chassis serial number of every BMW since, the late 60s or that's not me, but I can speak on most power plants. I can speak on everything from zip ties to Zeus clips, to speed clips, to riv nuts, you know what I mean? Because I'm curious, I'm curious by nature, and I'm not saying that's right or wrong. But I tend to feel that that's how generalists think. They're more curiously minded people, not just, hey, like, for instance, this is how I always fashion a bracket. I use a vise and I use a hammer and heat, and that's how I'm always going to do it. And if I need a nut, I'll drill a hole and weld it on. And, I'm always kind of looking for new and different. And I think because of that, I've learned a lot. I mean, we could talk about, I could talk about my recent findings with heat transfer, for t-shirts, because I'm looking into making, I got my press, I have my vinyl plotter, I'm all ready to go with promo material, and I'm excited about it. And I just fall down that rabbit hole. The different materials, the different pressure, the heats, the stretch materials, the thin ones, is thin better than thick, reflective, non, on and on. But it's kind of that thirst for knowledge. Now, in some respects, I think with a generalist, that's a detriment. But because there are definitely some experts that I really envy, just kind of the detail. And it's almost the difference between, I'd say, the more creatively minded and the experts which are more engineering minded, right? More detail oriented. They want to know what the torque specs are on every bolt on one chassis and just absolutely own it, rather than, know general build physics of, S chassis or whatever engine components, Supras, rotaries, whatever it may be. So, but, and I found that, in my talking, and I like to hear some feedback too. I mean, really, this podcast, sometimes it's going to be an update, sometimes it's just going to be an absolute brain dump just of what's on my mind. But I'd like to hear back from whoever's listening through any social media. We'll do an early plug, Elusive Auto Co. on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, every place that I put this podcast on. So, I'd like to hear some feedback. If you feel that you're a generalist or an expert, and this isn't a debate about what's right or wrong, it's just kind of a casual observation I've made, and kind of looking introspectively of who I am in the car culture and the different types. But, one thing that I found a pretty steady strand of is it seems Porsche owners seem to have a lot of model knowledge. And I think maybe it's daunting to me because there were so many models and I haven't really delved into those. Air-cooled, water-cooled, all the... I don't even know where to begin. I know the basics. And it seems like Porsche owners really have that breadth of knowledge. And not much outside that. So, I'd kind of look at them as more in the expert classification. But, it's just an interesting thing in conversations. It's one of those things when I go out to these places, I always make it a point, whether I go with someone or not, I usually go solo. I kind of prefer that because I learn more about builds, learn more about cars. There was the car's slipping my mind out. It's the Renault Turbo 2. I think that's the name of it, but it's the like that Group B rally car from the 80s. And that's my dog. That's my Pomeranian in the back. You know what? I was going to put that son of a bitch away. But I'm like, you know what? She's going to be quiet. Kids are coming home from school. This is kind of the end of my workday. I'm at my desk here. But whatever. It makes it more authentic, right? So that's my Pomeranian. She's fluffy. She's loud. She needs to be locked up at the moment. But anyways, there was this Group B Renault, and it's the mid-engine car, all-wheel drive, turbo, and when I say mid-engine, it's really unique how they did it. It was it's basically like a box behind the seat. The engine's in the cab. Usually mid-engine there's kind of that firewall separation, and this was just in the cab. And I think actually this is the gentleman I talked to that kind of got me thinking this way. I talked to him, and we're talking about the different cars that he's owned, and of course he has this. He has a Lancia Delta Integrale. Just some hitters, some stunners, some things that you will not see. Whether you love or hate them, you respect the rareness, of seeing them on the road. So, And I'm talking to this guy, and his knowledge of these cars, I mean, in history and race knowledge of the chassis and who won what race and what was in what and the differences from year to year, the difference in wastegate from that year to that, it astonished me. And I was like, you know what? Like, I appreciate that. I love who I am. I love being the generalist, but man, do I appreciate just the depth of knowledge of an expert that you don't need to, and I've said this before, and you'll probably hear it again because this is kind of a common thread in my life, that I don't put a lot of value on knowing facts and knowledge, just because I think that we're all fairly equal in that. If you have a computer or a phone and can hit some keystrokes, we can all pretty much find out what we need to if you're curious enough, So I don't hold much value there, but just the pure passion of something being able to reference things that quickly, that detailed, with no hiccups, tip of my tongue, like none of that, just boom, boom, almost like it was a rehearsed debate. Amazing. Just, yeah, you know what, now that I'm thinking back, that is exactly what got me thinking about this topic, because I met up with some other guys, and they were into they built some track cars and built some cars that they showed, and kind of like me, varied background, like the Japanese cars, respect the German build quality, know a little bit about everything. We can just talk about whatever, we could talk about my experience in working with carbon fiber, and then what kind of leather conditioner product I like. It's like that wide of a range. So I think to position between that and then running into this guy that's like, I just like 80s Group B rally cars, period. Like the Audi version, the Renault, that Lancia, and I think he had 8. And he probably, he had other models, and I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I can remember because I'm going to misquote and just sound like an idiot. But man, it was just interesting, and I love that range. I love that range in the culture, and I think that's what always keeps me wanting more. Because of the diverse types of people that you run into in the car culture. So, I'd like to hear from you guys. Hit me up. It's a fun topic, maybe, and I'd like to make this podcast a little more interactive. So, maybe if anyone actually does reach out to me and say, hey, listen to episode 3, what you said was trash, or yeah, I agree with what you said. We can kind of keep that dialogue, and I can bring it into like another episode, even talk with someone, on an episode about it. I think it'd be interesting. But, and I'll keep throwing in these little nuggets from time to time. But it's just something I think that's fun to talk about, because we could talk about cars, we could talk about the business till we're blue in the face. But, sometimes we kind of lose sight. I'm guilty of it too, of really why I want to do this, why I'm in it, why I will devote hours and hours after, a full work day, and then devote weekends. And quite honestly, it's, I'm only handcuffed by the 24 hours that we live, so moving on to the next topic of the day. So actually I want to get into that NSX. Let's talk about that NSX. So I love NSXs, not just recently, like from boyhood. Before I even knew I liked cars, before I even knew I liked Japanese cars specifically, they were just, man, when did I first see one? I saw one, boom, I know exactly, of all places, maybe I was 10, 10 or 12. So they were new. So, I was born in 83. Seeing one was super rare, because I think, I looked at the production numbers. They were never high for these cars. Even, I think the highest year of production for an NSX was 1940, and that was in 1991, the second year they were out. The lowest production number, this is nuts, and I was kind of shocked to see this, was 178 in 04, and that's a year before the last year that they were made in the States. They were made till 05 in the States, and I think in Canada, like 5 years earlier than that is when they stopped making them in Canada. So North America, it was kind of a short life for them. But anyway, so yeah, the first time I saw one, it was so random. A Steeler game. So families had Steeler tickets, season tickets since before I've been alive. What am I talking about? Since almost before my dad's been alive, or since he was young. I mean, it's ridiculous. But so we always went to the games, and of all places, it was in the same. They must have been together in like a car club back in the day. The same parking lot on the same day. Cold. Wasn't quite winter, but it was cold. I think it must have been earlier in the season. But it was a black Supra that totally dwarfed right next to it. I almost missed it. A black NSX. Because that car was so... Like, I remember being that age, 10 or 12, whatever it was. I remember being that age and thinking, this car looks like a door wedge. This thing looks like a weapon. Like it would just... If it hit you, you'd kind of be okay. Because it would just trip you, and you just kind of flop over top of it. And you'd be like, yeah. I mean, it was... Listen, I'm 6'4" now. I was always pretty tall for my age. But I remember at that age being like, this roof line, like I could reach across it, and that was kind of a big deal because at the time, my parents had like either a big sedan, my dad had like Maximas, and my mom had a Ford Explorer, and I couldn't really reach across the roof of any of them when they made me wash them. So the fact that I saw this black NSX and I'm like, oh my God, I can drape myself over this thing. And I'm like a kid. So I've loved the style ever since then. And I think it's really timeless style. And speaking of which, I think that is the only reason that I'll always have a soft spot for NSXs. It's really weird. I thought that I'd fall in love with it more after being in it and driving around in it. But, man, I guess it's like, when you have that idol, and you put them on a pedestal and then you meet them and you just find out they're a normal person with a specific skill set. You know what I mean? And you're kind of like, I really wanted more, I mean, listen, I have very realistic expectations. I understand completely. It is not supercar performance. It looks like one. People call it one. The budget supercar, the reliable high mileage, whatever you want to call it. But it's not. It doesn't have that performance. Like we know that. Handles amazingly, razor sharp. That manual steering rack is something else. I mean, the transmission is beautiful. The chassis, all aluminum, first car of its time. I don't know. I mean, it took years and years after that, I think, until another manufacturer did that. But I mean, first all aluminum chassis. Like, that's something. There was some engineering. It was over-engineered. I would bet money on it that Acura, Honda made nothing on those cars. When you factor in R&D, well, maybe nothing on them stateside. When you factor in R&D and engineering work and materials used. I mean, incredible. And you got to appreciate that. But, oh, man, it's just like you want to be... You want to feel some G-force, right? And it just felt like I mean, really, it felt very similar to an S2000, and it's got, a very different but similar feeling power plant. It had the V6 and an S2000 had the 4-cylinder, both VTEC, both revved, roughly the same. I think the NSX is like 8,200, 8,300 RPMs, red line. And depending on year of S2000, could be that or higher. I mean, but it felt that, like, I've driven the S2000, I've been in those a lot. It kind of, like, the pull felt very much like that. The cool factor, I mean, was there, and that makes you feel like, I think in the handling, I mean, listen, I can't knock the handling, but I think it was almost enhanced by the visibility. As odd as that sounds, like, the windshield goes down so low from your line of sight, and you have such great vision, it gives you more of a sense of rotation. Not necessarily like when you look at the Speedo, or you going that fast around the turn, but it felt really good. And I think it's a combination because, yes, it's a very good handling car, but I think a lot of that's exaggerated that much more with that point of view, with that windshield. I really do. It's crazy, I know, but yeah, so... But yeah, I mean, I guess it's in a car from the 90s, right? I mean, it's the interior, you don't expect much, but for some reason, I get that they what did they base it off? The F-16 fighter plane cockpit, and you get that vibe, and it's really cool. But it's I don't know. It just doesn't feel like. It's weird. I felt really big in that car, and I felt like it was built to like wrap around you, but because of the way the center console kind of angles away from your vision, instead of like, if you're an RX7, it kind of curves around you. If you're in a Supra, it curves around you. And the NSX, it doesn't kind of angle towards you, and it's not vertical. That center console to the dash comes up at like a 45-degree type angle towards the windshield. So it's like the shifter's close to you, obviously, but everything else gets further away. And it gives you kind of a disconnection. I can't explain it, but when I was in that, I wasn't vibing it as much. But listen, I will contradict the hell out of myself because I would love to have one someday. It just wasn't all that. When you put all those pieces together, I respect the engineering. It was so cool. All the details in the engine compartment. Little stitched pad that they put on the door sill because it's so high, and that's just naturally where you put your hand to get out. Which I thought, it's like little stuff like that don't even show up as an option, right? And no one talks about, but it's just so cool when you notice it. You're like, oh man, like good thinking, way to be. And then it was interesting, go around for a drive and probably, I don't know, like 15 miles or so, combination of like highway, back roads. So kind of a good test of the car. And got back and I was like, yeah, it just doesn't feel as special as I thought. But then I got out of the car. Then I get out of the car and it's all of that like almost got wiped away because I started stepping away from it. I'm like, man, gorgeous. I just and forgive me if I jumped around a bit, but yeah, this was a car. It was a local owner. This is present day again, not when I was 10. This is a local owner that had their car at a dealership on consignment, and I had a chance to check it out. I showed interest, obviously not in buying the car, but interest in checking it out. So car guys like to show off their cars, but it was a clean example. The owner, I think he was the third owner. It's not too bad. It was a 92, and he had it for I think 2 or 3 years, and talking about the performance, I think the suspension was fairly stock. Was completely stock. Maybe there was had like 90-some thousand miles on, so it might have been new struts or something like that. But because it rode really nice, it rode tight, no rattles, no the rebound felt good, felt factory, what I would imagine factory feels like. It's not bouncy, didn't squat too much, recovered nicely if the back end just jostled a bit, but. Yeah, and I think it just had exhaust, some exhaust components. I don't know enough about the engines to get into that. But, I think just kind of a cat back situation, or with those really, it's like from header to muffler to exit because of where the engine is. But, it's just like, you get in it, you're laying down, your head's jammed up against the ceiling from my point of view, and you're in an NSX. And open it up, and it's just like, it's quick. Actually, I don't know. It's for some reason I feel like quick is faster than fast, and I might be getting on a tangent here, but it didn't feel quick. Like it didn't hit you. And again, it's a low torque motor. It revs out, but even with how long it was revving, and then you look at the speed, you're just like, all right. It's quick. It's like, it's like if you got in I think you'd feel it more in like an STI, or an Evo or something like that. Those things feel like they hit you a good bit more. But the car, it's a light car, and what did they have? 270. The first gens, and I think the second run from like what, the 97s when they put the 3.2 liter in, was like an extra 20 horsepower, so 290. So I haven't been in one of those. I would imagine the 20 horsepower is actually noticeable just because of the size of car. But yeah, you know, it was what it was. It was a fun experience. And I know this is such a contradiction. Like, I still want one, but I don't like them as much. You know, I'm just not like, I don't know. My thirst has been quenched, I guess we could say. But anyway, so some updates. Segue. Some updates on the business. Been working on the RX7 FC. It has been killing me. Bodywork. I love and I hate bodywork at the same time. I am being a little crazy, trying to make it nice. I could probably just kind of wrap things up quickly, but it's like, it's taken so long. It's one of those things, once you've put, what is that saying? Like, people have trouble correcting a mistake if they've put a lot of time into it. And you just kind of like go down with the ship with that mistake. Not saying that this car is a mistake, but it's like I put so much time into it, I just can't like shortcut anything now. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. Like, I've put so much time into that bumper, that front bumper, that Origin knockoff bumper that I love the look, but it's like I put so much time into that thing, and I could have just wrapped it up. I could have just made it kind of work, and there would have been some like weird gaps. But I mean, you know, you look around, the majority of body kits don't really fit that great. But I wanted to get close to factory look, fit wise, gap wise. You know what I mean? Man, yeah. So, and I made a huge boo-boo. Well, not huge. It was just time-consuming. Man, I had... so, on a side note, if you're going to get filler primer, get the good stuff. I love SEM. SEM products are just amazing, period. But their primer is fantastic. It's like $20 a bottle. And you go through a ton of it because it goes on super thin. It has a great fan pattern. But... you know, 4 or 5 coats of that on I use that up. I use that up on the top portion of the fender where I just corrected. There's essentially some paint leveling from the previously bad paint job, and there was a ding that I pulled and just kind of filled and leveled. And I almost used up a can, so it was like $20 for that. So I was like, you know what? I have some. So I bought some 3M brand, the Bondo brand filler primer. Just as good. So I think I'm going to stick with that like forever. Sprayed really well. But anyways, I went through that can on a door, some door dings that I was patching up because, you know, I'm spraying that on, leveling it out, you know, do some wet sand and get all that stuff prepped because I want it to look real nice for the paint, especially because the car is black. It's going to show any little imperfection. So I ran out of that and I had another spot and I had some primer and I totally like it. It was late. It was one of those like 2 a.m. during the weekday after I worked all day type of nights. And man, I sprayed this, was it Duplicolor? I think it was Duplicolor, but it was a filler primer, but I didn't look close enough at that bottle. It wasn't, there was a very, very, and it might be super obvious, but at that time of night, very obvious difference between a filler primer and a sandable filler primer. Sandable cures hard. Sandable doesn't clog sandpaper. The stuff that just kind of fills, holy shit, you can't get rid of it. I have gone through, I mean, I probably blew through like $15 worth of sandpaper sanding this crap off because I put it on, I'm like, I didn't like how I was laying. It was like the fan pattern sucked. It wasn't laying right, and I go to level it. You know, I put on a guide coat, and I go to level it, and it's sticky and goopy, and I'm like, it's soft. I'm like, screw this. Like, I got to start over. I'm going to take all this stuff off. It took me forever with my DA and my flat block. I went through so much sandpaper because it would just clog, and I used Scotch-Brite in between, you know, to kind of knock out some of the clogs to prolong the life of it. But, man, that sent me back. So anyways, long story short, buy the good stuff. It'll save you time. SEM is the best, but it's super expensive. I think a close second. Really sprays similarly is that the 3M, the Bondo brand filler primer. It's really nice. It sprays on thin, so you need a lot of coats, but it dries in like 10 minutes. And the main thing is the fan. The spray fan pattern is like twice the width of, you know, Duplicolor or whatever brand. You know, I've tried a bunch of them through the years. But anyways, so spent a lot of time fixing that. I truly am in the home stretch with the FC to get that painted, and I need to be because May 7th coming up, the the FD, my third gen, is hitting the Port of Savannah. So I just filed some of the paperwork that I needed with the carrier. Once that clears, I need to do the line release, delivery order, and then I can go pick it up. Take my customs paperwork, which I'm going to cover all that in maybe the next or the episode after. I'm going to have a very detailed episode with one topic only, and that is step-by-step importing cars. So it's either going to be next episode or the one after. It really depends on scheduling. But anyways, so I'm excited about that. And my Japanese counterpart, who helps me source cars over there, he actually bought, when he was in England, Nissan Cedric. He just saw it show up, one of the dealers in England. It was a super rare find as far as the mileage, and it was super clean. And he knew I was looking for cars like that, so he actually bought it when he was there on holiday without even talking to me. And if I didn't buy it, no big deal. He'd probably sell it to somebody else, not a problem. But he called me, sent me pictures. I'm really excited about this thing. Not as many people are going to be excited about it. I get it, because it's like old, could be VIP car, huge four-door sedan. If you don't know, look up what a Nissan Gloria, Nissan Cedric, essentially the same thing. I don't know if Nissan purchased the Prince Motor Company, and with that came, I believe, the Gloria and the Skyline. And this is way back in the day, so little history for you. But and that's how Nissan ended up with essentially two parallel models, the Gloria and the Cedric, which looked identical, with the difference being the emblem in the center of the grille. Most people won't even pick up on that. But anyways, I think one of them was a little, I think the Gloria is supposed to be a little more sporty, so maybe it offered some more sporty wheel options. But anyways, so I got this Cedric, so I'm like, heck yeah, I'm all about it. 15,000 kilometers, original, service history, pictures underneath. Looks like it had to be in storage indoors because the interior doesn't look all dried out. The underside looks terrific, no leaks, drives nice. So I'm really excited. And it's bone stock, so I'm just excited to get that in. That's in storage in Japan until the end of the month. It technically can't get on a boat. It can't be exported until June because of the build date. But that is going to be on its way. So that's going to leave, I want to schedule it as soon as possible. So beginning of June, as soon as that's legal, that is hitting the boat, heading to me. The FD is going to be here soon. Hopefully I can pick that up next week. And as soon as I pick it up, my first thing is going to the DMV to get the title work going, because that usually takes at least a month. And that month will give me time to order the interior pieces that I'm replacing, do any kind of refurbishing, maintenance, all that good stuff on the FD, and then that will be out. So hopefully we'll have some cool videos, some coverage of the FC and FD together, and I can put them on the market at the same time. They're both going to be black. It'll be a whole fun thing. So I'm really excited about those cars. And, as soon as those sell, can get some more in and just keep the ball rolling here. So some fun things in the pipeline. So stay tuned. I'll announce on my social media. I'm putting together a bit of a contest, kind of an acronym contest for RHD, right-hand drive. So just this is a little teaser of that, but I'll get into a little more detail once I launch that. I'm kind of putting some things together. I want to have some prizes to give away. Again, I don't have a huge following on social media and all that stuff yet, but I'm all about the community. Let's create a community. I don't care if I have 400 followers, but everyone's active and we talk to each other. Like, it's all good. I don't need the crazy high numbers. I'd rather the communication, the community, and give some things out there. I don't want to say give some things back, but give some things to people for nothing. Let's just have a fun thing. Think of a cool little acronym for right-hand drive. I can make some T-shirts, some stickers, send them out to people for free. Whatever. It'll be cool. So I'm going to log off here. We're going to wrap this one up. Tonight is the first night of karate for my boy, who's 5. So I'm super excited about that. So I'm going to go hop in the M, blow some exhaust notes around in the neighborhood. and zip over there to karate. And I am saying karate now. I used to say karate, but now since he's in it, it is officially karate. So thanks for listening. As always, can be found on anywhere. Well, not anywhere. Most places you have podcasts. So, if you're listening to me on SoundCloud, iTunes, and Google Play, kind of the top three here. And social media everywhere at Elusive Auto Co. So Elusive Auto Co. Hit me up on Twitter. Let's talk about that Generalist expert kind of rant that I went on at the beginning. DM me on Twitter, Instagram. Editing some videos now for the YouTube channel, so it'll be kind of some behind-the-scenes stuff of the RX7 and some other business goodies. So look forward to seeing you out there. Enjoy.